Hey guys, I am John Carrick, and today we're looking at Secret number 5 by Jonathan Hickman and Ryan Bodenheim for Image Comics. And these guys have Ryan's artistic skill is second to none. These guys have an opportunity to shoot for the moon. And what we have here is a WB, as really a wannabe noir action thriller. It's not thrilling. It's not very much action. But it's beautiful. It's really, really, really well drawn. The two color palette by Michael Garland, I'm just reading right here, I think this is what they paid him for. They said, look, that's Mark Strong in a ton of movies, a ton of Guy Ritchie movies. Just, you see him all the time. He was in the Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. He was the first one. He was the bad guy. So they are questioning this guy. What's going on? What do you know? Who did this? What is it about? Kodiak. Bam, bam. That's all they need to know. How does he know about Kodiak? Oh my God, what is this? Here he's putting down the calling card. Their calling card isn't a card or a way of killing. It's this Omega bullet. Here is, this is Grant's boss. I believe his name is Miles. This guy, I don't remember his name, but it's not really important. That's all we see of Mark Strong. He's not in it again. But we do get a match cut from that guy sitting in his chair to Lincoln sitting here. Here is Grant and Veronica. Her name is Veronica, not Alyssa. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do because they've been set up from inside their own operation. They're former CIA who are now government contractors, and their department is involved in Kodiak. Kodiak is nothing more than $1 billion. Now, I had said yesterday that it was an account, it was individual accounts between all these security services. That's not true. This is a Cold War account between the CIA and the KGB, and they pooled their money, and it's billions of dollars. And their boss, this guy back here, Miles, has stolen it. And the other guy who got killed, his name was Thomas, not Jason. That was their friend. This guy had him killed when he found out. This guy has stolen it from everyone, and these guys know, and they are going to steal it back. They're talking about what they're going to do. This is very much a Ray Donovan episode. You guys should also check out the show Rubicon. Excuse me, let me say that again. You guys should also check out the show Rubicon. It's very good. It's about a think tank in Washington that identifies infrastructure insecurities in the United States, but then instead of acting on those insecurities and presenting them to Congress and presenting them to the states where, presenting them to contractors who could fix them, these guys present them to military contractors who take advantage of them for their own gain. Veronica and Grant are figuring out what they're going to do. Grant back here says he doesn't know what he's going to do. I wanted to also talk about what, the point of why this is about literature and not about art. I did some really good art last night. I am having a very unique art experience that we will talk about after the comic is done. But I want to talk about story. I want to focus on story, and this is important. The number one thing you have to do in story is your main character has to be the person who resolves the issue. They're the ones who have to be decisive and come up with the clever solution to the common or not so common problem that the heroes are facing, the people you're supposed to be identifying with. Here we're supposed to be identifying with Veronica and Grant for no reason other than that they are the characters of focus. They haven't necessarily done anything. Their friend Thomas was killed, but none of these people are especially good people. They're just the main characters because they're the pretty people who are up front. And they are the people who are taking action to do something about a problem that has been presented in their lives. They're not necessarily good people. They're the main characters because of how the story's written. And so what we have is main characters who we don't identify with. We want them to win because we know them, essentially. Grant figures out what to do. Take stock of your resources. Quan, the super hacker. Veronica, the cool as a cucumber agent. His brother, Marcus. And what they're going to do, what we need a montage. It's a fractured montage, but this is what we're going to do. This guy's dead. This guy's their boss. He's stolen the money. They're going to steal it back. Maybe this guy's not dead. This guy's the guy that hired them. I don't think he is dead yet. Or he was the guy who just got killed in this issue right here at the beginning, which is possible. Is that him? No, that guy's got a flat top. So, like I was saying, these are our main characters. They do have a plan to get this money. These are the tools that Grant has, but they're people, not tools. This is the montage that explains the situation. Their boss stole the money. They're going to steal it from him. They can't just outright keep it. They have to do something with it. Can you hack into the system? Yeah. Can you get into his? They have to get into the kernel of his office computer. They send Veronica for that. She's their team ninja. Oh, I was talking about the show Rubicon. The show Rubicon is really, really good. It's a think tank sort of thing where when they present the information to their bosses hire private military contractors to take advantage of it and weaken the country instead of strengthen it. So here we get these guys go into the bank. They present what they need to do. They get the transfers done. Their boss thinks he's got everything made. He goes into the bank later. Here they're talking about what they're going to do now that the crime has been done. Now they need to take advantage of the situation. Obviously, they can't let it go public, but they can't live in fear either. This guy goes into his boss's office. He says he has the alert was set off, the interior alert. He says everything's fine, it's all closed down, but your computer is still warm. So it has been accessed. This guy's, okay, let me know the details when I land. He gets onto his plane, and now Grant and Marcus have the upper hand that this guy had on Marcus' previous issue. So that's a nice reversal, but we've seen it before. And this guy hears it. These guys are still at the office, so now he knows that Grant has made a play. And that's the end of issue 5. All right, let's do the next bit. Hey guys, so we're looking at secret number 5. Is this 5? Yeah. The montage episode where it ends up where, see, now this is the problem. Oh, and I didn't show the ads. I don't think I showed the ads yesterday either. These actually look pretty good. That looks cool. What is that, a dead guy? A vampire and a cop, probably. Oh, and then Fatal. Anyhow, so this ends up where they have their boss, right? They have their boss captive, but they've left 2 of their team members out in the wind for this other guy to catch. And they probably don't even recognize that they've done it because they don't immediately call them and warn them. And these other team members happen to not be the ones who are always on their guard. They're not Marcus and Grant. They're the ninja girl and the hacker. So there's a weakness to be exploited. And this is, I suppose I'm asking too much from this comic, but you didn't have to put it out, right? Like, you could have bumped the dialogue up. There's no subtext really, not really. There's secrets and there's loops. Information loops. There's some points where certain people know something and certain people don't. There's some points where the audience thinks they know something and they don't. It's much ado about nothing. It's much ado about money. It's much ado about money. That's going to be the title of today's episode. And today's conflicted card is the Jack of Diamonds. And this is after the collapse, how would you approach prepper groups? That's easy. Bring something. Gifts. Gifts are always, how do you approach strangers? Gifts. It's the oldest answer in the world. And here's a gift for you guys. If you guys have never seen this, I think this might be on Internet Archive. This is Shadow Warriors. There's a lot of stuff that Secret is just like. I mentioned that show Rubicon, that show Ray Donovan. There's tons of shows that are like that. That's a WB version of all of those things. It's certainly not the Brian De Palma version. like some old 70s movie. But Shadow Warriors, starring Sonny Chiba as Hattori Hanzo. This is the part that was in Kill Bill, and he is essentially a Japanese Batman, working for the magistrate, a local magistrate, a Tokugawa magistrate, a Commissioner Gordon. He has a Commissioner Gordon, and he's secret, and no one knows who he is. Even the commissioner doesn't know who he is. He only appears as the ninja Hattori Hanzo, but he has a day job at, running a local place, and he helps out the local people. All of his ninjas are locals in the local village. It's a Japanese period drama. They don't have an English version. You have to read it. And this first season is especially awesome. There's a lot of episodes. I want to say 26, but there's a lot. And let's say there's 6 per disc. That's 24. The second season is they take the cast and move them like 100 years into the future. So they all have different roles. And at the end of the first season, a lot of them had been killed. And that's a little different. And they do that each successive season. This would be like if the BBC made it. This is, I don't know if it was Japanese television or Toei or whoever. But it has that sort of feel. It's TV. So it's TV from the 70s. But for that same reason, all the period stuff is perfect. They're using like whatever museums as sets, the old villages as sets. It's just, and this has a feeling of that. The secrets, they're not really ninja, but the modern, it's an updated version. And this is just as good as Japanese TV. Here's the thing that I mentioned before. I think Japanese culture, of all the foreign cultures, has the most in common with American culture. Not so much American culture, but English culture. Japanese and English culture are mirror aspects of one another. They're island cultures. Japan even more so than England. Japan, I think, has a lot of elements to it that we could see in the mythology of the elves. They're a very high culture. They're extremely insular. They're cut off from the rest of the world. And weapons and obedience and royalty, all of those things are everything. Their money is food. In the Japanese culture, the money was distribution. It was paid in koku of rice, which is bushels, basically, or tons or something like that, or fields of rice. And so that's, they had, of course, gold also, that was used for economy. But the way the government paid out, it was land and food, essentially. So that's like a high culture completely. And they had a great sense of humor, like England. England had a much better sense of humor than, say, Germany. Germany and the Dutch, the Norse have a good sense of humor. The Irish and the Scottish have a great sense of humor. But there's, the French too. The French are a very Japanese culture. I mean, look at all of Europe is the chivalry. I think it's the intelligence and the walling yourself off from the rest of the world, which is what Europe did for a long time. Because we had everything we needed. We don't need anything else. We don't need any outsiders. And my channel got a strike today. I got a warning for a video that I put up that they said was hate speech. I think it's because I said boycott, divest, and sanction. Probably, most likely. But I don't get on here hating on people. I just want to be honest about things. And there are some truisms that aren't true that we have, and that if you say them, you're a racist. And I don't lean into that. I don't come out here and say that kind of stuff. I'm out here promoting fiction literature. Literature is about lifting you up and this is about encouraging you to believe in yourself, to take the challenge on, and to be all that you can be, right? And I know that's retarded and sounds like a commercial for the army, but there's something to be said for the military. What's beautiful about the military is that they compress a lot of learning into a very short period of time. You're forced to learn how to learn. And if you don't stop doing that, the sky's the limit. You can accomplish anything. I've got 2 novels out. I'm finishing a 3rd. Last night I didn't write a chapter so I'm going through something very unique. I mentioned before on this channel that when I was a kid, I had bad stigmatism, and the way they solve that as a child is they do surgery on your eyes where they take the eyeball out of your head, cut the muscles off, and then reattach them and put it back into your head. I had bad stigmatism on both eyes. I had surgeries at 3 years old and at 5 years old. I have no idea which one was which. I do remember screaming and crying the first time they put the rubber mask over my face. And I had nightmares for years of giant cables and knots in the cables. And getting to the knots, they were knots of pain. And I know now that whatever they put into your head is a stitch that dissolves, and those knots were the stitches holding the muscle to my eye, that the only thing it could have been, and as they dissolved, the nightmares went away. And so I had those nightmares probably from 3 to 7 pretty regularly. And that was a crazy thing. And then growing up, my eyes never focused on the same point. And I think that's probably why I fell in love with art. Sports were especially fast sports, baseball, no. I once in Little League went to catch a baseball. I got my mitt up. Now this is part of being a child. Got my mitt up and the ball was coming down so hard it broke my nose through the mitt. Or it didn't break it, but it was blood everywhere. It was not fun. Basketball's the same thing. Ball to the face. Football. My eyes just didn't focus on the same point. Batting practice, forget about it, I love going to the batting cages, but that's when they're on slow or medium, and I love the visceral thrill of cracking, a good hit. But the problem with the batting cages is you can't really use a nice bat because the balls are shit, and the bats they have are crap too, so that's sort of limited, Anyhow, I do have a point to this story. So all my life, I was able to do good rough drawing, really good rough drawings, and I had a problem with the very fine detail. And what would happen was I would sketch out a character for a while, get the perspective and the proportions and the position down, the gesture that I wanted. And I was able to do the eyes and mouth and stuff and get a nice facial expression. But when it came to lighting and cross-hatching the character, I was fucked. And I didn't know why. And it's not until this past week that I've really come to understand why. Because the pencil, the tip of the pencil, my eyes weren't seeing it at the same place. And depending on which eye happened to be dominant, I would end up moving the pencil. And when you're cross-hatching, it's all about getting the strokes in sync with each other, so they create a gradient. And if the strokes are all wobbly because you're not seeing them correctly, I've had the most amazing experience this past week. I've connected like a jawline from the chin to the other part of the jawline where I had to erase a bit because the line got wonky, and I connected it seamlessly. And I've never done that. And that's because my dominant eye is not being interfered with by my less dominant eye, because this less dominant eye has gotten so bad it can't overrule the good one. It's hard to accept that if I had put on an eye patch as a junior high school student, my art level would have gone up tremendously really fast, but no one knew to tell me that, and I certainly didn't think of it myself. So a life wasted. I don't know. In terms of the writing, here's the other thing. I accepted that the weakness in modern comic books is not the art. There's a lot of guys doing great art, and they're all writers. Because for so long, the artist had to do costume design, lighting, expression, theme, which is a combination of all of the above, which is complete direction, stage design, stage direction, architecture design, camera placement. The artist had to do all of that. And so every once in a while, you get a guy like John Buscema, Frank Miller, Kirby. God, why am I spacing on his first name? That's embarrassing. Jack Kirby. Thank God. But all the great artists. Now, there's been a bunch of them since who are very good at some things and not so good at others. Some of them are very good at the design of the page. Some of them are very good at the flow of the story. Frank Miller is very good at the flow of the story. He's very good at comics. Will Eisner is great at everything. You know, Gil Kane can do anything, but it's Gil Kane. I don't know if you guys feel that way. I loved the art of Neil Adams, but that was because Neil Adams happened to be attached to some of my favorite stories and characters. To me, the stories quickly became much more important. I knew I was never going to compete on the art level the same way I was never going to compete on the baseball level. But now my art's getting much better. Now that this eye is just, I can still see out of it. I can still fight out of it. I can see if someone's going to punch me out of it, but I can't really read out of it. And that means it's not interrupting drawing. And I am doing the best work of my life. And it breaks my heart. And I want to fight God. And, you know, I'll get my chance in about 20 years or so. I suppose we'll have it out. But yeah, so your days are numbered for everything, right? My channel's days are numbered, but if they listen to a little bit more of these videos and hear me say some more things they don't like. You know, Trump won, so to segregate, the ban hammer is coming back down. If Kamala had won, guess what? The ban hammer is coming back down. They're not going to just go away. They're still in charge of these platforms. You know, it means I'll just end up uploading all of these to Rumble and Odyssey. I'm not going to cease doing this. I still need to do outreach for my work because I believe in my work because I believe that the values in writing, which are virtues, instead of the values in drawing, which are brightness and contrast in line work, that the virtues are more important. The virtues, the encouragement, which are also present in video games and films and television. That's the universal through line, and novels, of course. That's where you get the message to, you know, why do we love Spider-Man? Get up when you fall, Bruce. Look, that matters. That got me through high school wrestling. I mentioned in the video called The Coming Race War, I said that cutting weight for wrestling and running through the snow. I used to run through the snow to catch the bus. We had a special kind of bus that I caught because I was going to a Catholic school where they would stop for you anywhere along the way. And it was winter, so when I would leave my subdivision was like a mile square, and run up to the main highway, and then jog down the highway in the winter through the snow at like 4 a.m. to cut weight. That was a good way to do it. And then, you know, keep warm at the same time. Some days were cold, some days were like amazingly warm, you know. But that's good discipline. You know, that's the discipline that got me through the Marine Corps. When I got into the Marine Corps, I was called what was called a double rat, which is because I was a really skinny kid, so I got double rations. Didn't really help, you know, because your body your body's not made to absorb it just over 6 months, you know. And boot camp was only like 13 weeks anyhow, so that's like. And then you get MCRD. You get basic infantry training. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a month after basic, and then you get your MOS training. It took me years to put on weight, but I knew I couldn't stop working out. I had to just keep going to the gym, you know, keep taking martial arts classes just like Batman, you know. That's part of your job as being a man, right? Those are the things you have to do. And if you neglect them, what you neglect will come up and bite you in the ass. And I neglected this, and I wonder if I had investigated it immediately and gotten it fixed, I might still be crying to my, you know, why can't I draw? And now I know why. and I'm going to get it fixed the next couple weeks here. I could have gone to the VA and got it fixed, but the doctor who I went to get it diagnosed told me that he had worked at the VA when he first got out of school, and then now he still fixes a lot of patients from the VA. So that's not a fucking recommendation, god damn it. You know what I mean? That's why I've never been to the fucking VA, because it was obvious that these were all young doctors learning their craft, and I don't want to be experimented on. Don't want to be experimented on. So I have to wait a couple more weeks, but I'm doing the best drawing of my life, and I'm writing the best chapters of my life. So who do I fight over this? You know, myself, God. Besides, it's too late now. Ex-girlfriends who cursed me, you know, Jews who don't like me on YouTube who cursed me. That's terrible to think. Look, I don't want anyone to think I'm cursing them. When I call out people doing things, that's just, I'm not very good at observational humor. I've always felt the sharp end of jokes, so I never really got into making jokes. That's why Anthony Jeselnik, you know, I will give him this. He said he can't have a wife and kids because he makes too many jokes about dead kids. And that karma has a sneaky way of dealing with people who do that. And he is aware of it. And he can't, you know, lean into that. So, you know, I traded my life for this. For these two books. And I'm not holding, I don't want to put them up in front of my head, but Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox. I traded everything for these. I had relationships that I probably could have leaned more into my career as a television editor and probably convinced them to have children with me. But that wasn't something that the women, I only had really 3 adult relationships. I was pretty much in a relationship my entire adult life. And yes, I had some girlfriends I did not get into a relationship with when I was single, but I didn't cheat on my girlfriends, and I really wanted a family, and I was always chasing money. And the girls always wanted something with their career, or my first girlfriend already had a kid and she didn't want to have a kid with me. And my second one didn't want kids, and the third one wanted more out of her career and wanted kids later. And so I don't know if she, whatever happened to her. But when they were with me, they certainly didn't want children. So, how do you fight someone to, you can't, and because what do you end up with? Divorced and kids who are living between 2 parents, and that's not a life I wanted for my children. My parents hated each other and probably should have gotten divorced. And this is way too much information for you guys, but seeing as how this may be one of my last videos, there may not be too many more of these. Putting it all out on the table, as they say. Leaving it on the field, I think, is the phrase. But yeah, I'm doing really good. I'm working on a, we're going to print a zine and do a bunch of free stuff on a website where we have the stuff that's for sale, right? A bunch of free sequentials and free gag comics, one panel. Right now I'm working on a 1 panel between Lady Astor, who is the first female in the British Parliament, and Churchill, where she says to him, "If I were your wife, I'd poison your tea." And he says, "Madam," or he doesn't say madam, he says, "If I were your husband, I'd drink it." And the facial expressions I've got, Churchill's still rough, but Lady Astor looks good. And I'll do that, I'll put that on the end of this, like I did the other ones for the Ashley bit. And even though I'm losing vision in one eye, I'm happier than I've ever been. That's a hard thing to say. So it has limited me in some things. I've come to accept the fact that I haven't been out skating as much this past year is because of this, and I hadn't acknowledged it. But that means when I go skating in the future, I'll be more careful. I won't be doing street skating the way I had been. I'd been doing sort of going out and pushing for a couple hours, just exploring my local neighborhood out here on the skateboard. I think in the future, it will be early morning sessions in abandoned skate parks. And, more practicing on the moves than just cruising through an urban environment. As fun as that was, I did that as a kid on a bike. You know what I mean? One of my father's best gifts to me was the Huffy BMX bike that I got. It had mag wheels. They were plastic or maybe aluminum, but I loved that bike. It was awesome. I don't think I was ever thankful as much as I should have been. But, you know, I did the best I could. He was doing the best he could. It's generally all you can say. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Bye.